The EFL is one of the last true remaining bastions of football with no VAR fiddling with anything, and any team can beat any team on any given week, except for Hull City, who apparently can't even beat themselves at this point. Sorry about that, Hull, but it's really not going well for you. But that could be about to change significantly. The EFL is about to undergo a very big shift, and it's one that is a little bit spooky for a lot of fans, although I feel like it could have some pretty big positive impacts. I'm going to talk about what those changes are, how exactly they would work, and whether people even want them, and whether they are absolutely needed in this set of leagues or not. So first up, we need to recognise the fact that the EFL are currently monitoring developments around a challenge system. Now, to sort of specify what this means, a challenge system would be similar to what they are doing in cricket, where you've got an umpire's review if there is a decision that you think is completely disagreeable, and then from that point they'll make a decision based on more video evidence. So it's like VAR, but in a situation where you can just sort of say, I think that was a bit wrong, and then they'll take a look at it. Now, this comes with the caveat that you can have a grand total of, I think, 2 incorrect challenges in any given match. Once you've used those incorrect challenges, tough, because it sort of stops people taking the piss with it, and it stops people just sort of throwing challenges out in the hope that eventually one sticks. You sort of need to save them for the important stuff, and you might not even use them in the slightest at all. It's something that has been tested out by FIFA, I think the Under-17s Women's World Cup or something like that, and it seemed to be moderately positive as a result of that. So when it comes to a question of how it would work, it's pretty simple. And it's something that is fairly easily used throughout the EFL. The issue with VAR is it is very expensive and it requires a lot of referees. For every match, you need a referee, linesman, you need a VAR referee at Stockley Park and assistants to go with them and technicians and all that sort of stuff. Meanwhile, for the EFL, if you've got in any given weekend 36 matches, they're not going to be that many matches on at the same time. We'll say at most 30, 25 games happening at the same time. You don't need the VAR refs paying attention at all times to everything that is going on in that match, because they're not going to be calling back things that might have happened 5 minutes ago. They are going to be called upon when they are called into action by the managers. When a manager goes, hang on, not sure about that, that's where that VAR referee hops in, gets involved, says, you're wrong, actually the referee was correct, or says, no, in fact, that is a red card, I'm not entirely sure how you missed that. Still not over the one against Preston. So that's roughly how it would work. It seems like a more feasible method of getting some form of video refereeing into the Championship, and it sort of makes sense to me, because it's a situation where the most blatant wrong decisions get fixed, but the sort of standard stuff that anyone would let play is dealt with. That's what a lot of people's problem is. It's, you're sort of taking the passion out of football, and everyone agrees that should be onside. Well, in that case, I assume there won't be a case of it being challenged, which means that it is likely to go through. Because if you don't challenge it, then you don't get those weird ones that get ruled out for things that aren't actually fouls and stuff like that. It's basically a safer way of doing VAR without ruining everything. Everyone had the same sort of opinion around goal line technology as well, being like, well, it's part of the game. Sometimes you lose out in these decisions, but it makes sense to get it involved. And there is a question around whether people want it or not. And I've talked to a few people around this, and the general gist is that people hate VAR because it takes forever to make a decision. And then when it does make a decision, it's often wrong anyway. But I think the challenge system kind of helps with that. And if you look at the EFL in the Championship and League One and League Two, I am assuming I'm talking to many Championship fans here rather than Premier League fans. We're all agreed that the refereeing in the Championship and below is horrible, right? It's absolutely dire. It's honestly dreadful. Premier League fans complain when the referees get things wrong. What happens when those referees get things wrong? They get sent down leagues, which meant that we're dealing with your absolute dross, which just makes things worse and worse and worse. And people get into a conversation about, well, it evens itself out. It doesn't over the length of a season. Let's be honest, it's complete randomness. It might even itself out, sure, but the odds that it actually does are incredibly low. So when it comes to a question of whether people want it, when it comes to full VAR, I think absolutely not. But when I think about a challenge system, and I think about a case in which you can basically say, this is straight up a wrong decision, referee, you can fix it now, then that works. You get to keep your challenges because you get 2 incorrect ones, and well done. Things are improved, and arguably it'll be a little bit faster as well because you're not checking absolutely everything that could have possibly happened. It's just about one decision. So as I mentioned earlier, I think the EFL could be changing forever if they do dive into this, because whilst they said in October, I think the EFL chief said, we're not looking at implementing VAR, this isn't that. And it's something that they are actively monitoring developments around and thinking, is this a thing that is going to work? And I think on the face of it, if you can make refereeing decisions that are blatantly wrong throughout the pyramid significantly better, then there's no real reason to not. And people will say, well, it's a question of having the broadcast cameras there. Every single match in the Vanarama National League is broadcast on TV now. Well, not TV, on DAZN, but you know what I mean. There are cameras all over the place of a decent enough standard to see, at the very least, what happened. And odds are you'll have something like we'll leave it as a referee's call so you can keep your challenge, but we're not going to change it. So I don't see the harm in implementing a system where the most blatant wrong decisions are fixed, that keeps things moving a little bit faster, and everyone turns out a little bit happier at the end of the day. Although that doesn't fix the biggest issue with refereeing in this country, which is the way that referees are very much in a protect your own kind of situation, where if a referee does something real bad and you're on TV and then you got Mike Dean going, not in a game like that, Gary, it doesn't fucking matter. A penalty's a penalty. Context doesn't count. And that's the situation that we're in. But if we can be in a spot where, at least to lessen that, the most obvious of decisions do get fixed, then that cabal of referees that are currently holding the game effectively hostage by making these genuinely shocking decisions week in, week out, and meaning that a lot of what the fans talk about isn't what's happening on the pitch. Oh, hello. Isn't what's happening on the pitch, but is instead keeping a track of the man in black and making sure that he's made the right choices. And if he hasn't, then genuine madness, then that can only help. It keeps more attention on the players, on what the players are actually doing, on the actual outcomes of the match, rather than any conversation going on around, well, I don't know if we deserve to win, but the referee, he changed it. This limits that. And anything that does that, I think, is a good opinion. Yeah, they might make some wrong decisions, but I feel like it's probably a step in the right direction. But as always, that is just what I think. I, of course, want to know what you guys think, because it's genuinely very helpful. And this is one of those topics that everyone has their own different opinion on. And I kind of want to see where you guys are landing on that. So pop them in the comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're not yet. That's always really appreciated. Could also become a channel member. Get videos like this one a little bit early. Hope you enjoyed. And I will see you later. Toodaloo.